Did the Georgia Bulldogs waste a great opportunity against Alabama? I mean, it's a month later. I think the answer is yes, but I have a more complex answer than that, Matt. It is a good topic, though. Alabama losing to Michigan, Georgia throttling Florida State. What's your take on this? Because I want to hear what y'all have to say before what I've got to say.
Yeah, I think they're obviously totally beatable, right? They lost to Texas, should have lost to Auburn, lost to Michigan, and for a good bit of the season, we saw this Alabama team kind of struggle consistently. Now they won most of their games, and I think we all agreed that they should have been in the Final Four. But when you look at it, I mean, I was watching that Michigan Alabama game thinking, man, Georgia really should have beat them. They look like the better team. This is a completely a different Alabama team that we saw in the SEC championship game. They gave it their all. They played their best game of the season. But it's hard to look now and say, man, Georgia kind of dropped the ball there. They had a golden opportunity to be in a position to three-peat, and they didn't get it done, Ryan. Just, seems like it's more disappointing now after watching Alabama lose to Michigan like they did.
I mean, Georgia was the best team in the country the entire regular season. And once we got to November, everyone kind of started to think that it wasn't super close, that there was a step down to Michigan. So, the ridiculousness of what happened the day after aside, you got to win that game, right? Because that's the game that everyone's thinking about. Whether it's true that these conference championships hold the same weight or not, the committee has shown us time and time again that they kind of view that in a similar light. So, it was wasted opportunity. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but like there was history on the line for Georgia, and that game, it all ended up coming down to that one day. So yes, they dropped the ball.
Yeah, literally in some cases, but I agree with that. The sentiments there to begin with Matt and Ryan. Real quick, hey, make sure you're picking up our newsletter. It's right down below. You're going to miss out on a lot of different stuff. Matt shoved our newsletter out today right as I was doing it, so he's going to get it there typically around 2 o'clock every day. But I think for me, all that notwithstanding, I think Alabama has wasted a tremendous opportunity here. I mean, I don't know, Matt. I think I mean, on this in this group of in this trio, the recruiting world better than we do for sure. I think Alabama's recruited well. They've not recruited as well as Georgia. There's Jalen Milroe is not as good a quarterback as Carson Beck. There's some other spots where the two programs are, similar or whatever. They're both very close, but Georgia's better than Alabama is. They just lost that game. It's the same way, Texas is better than Oklahoma, and they lost that game, which was bizarre. So, it happens. But I think Alabama, I don't know that I don't know they blew their last opportunity to win a national championship.
I mean, I
Hold
don't
on.
think.
Let me just say that. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud, Matt, and I'll throw it to you. I mean, this is the longest they've been without a national championship under Nick. It's hardly failure to go 3 years without it, but could this have been their last chance? We don't know. It could have.
I don't think so. That class that they brought in, their true freshman class, is outstanding. And they're Alabama. They're going to always be one of the more talented teams with one of the best coaching staffs, with a lot of, people behind the program that are going to make sure that they're not dropping significantly. I think there's a major opportunity for Michigan and Washington. I think both of them will take a step backwards next year. And we've talked to Georgia's not going anywhere. This machine that we've talked about for a long time, it's going to keep rolling. And Alabama's not going anywhere either. This was a down year for them, especially if you just use your eyeballs. It did not look great at times. But again, like we've talked about, they won the game that mattered, and they played their best on the biggest stage, and they were able to get into the playoff. And looking back on it, y'all, I'm surprised Alabama had kept it that close. I mean, that dude was snapping the ball all over the place. They were shooting themselves in the foot over and over and over again.
Michigan played bad too, though, man.
Yeah. And it kind of goes back to the point where, man, I think Georgia's better than Michigan. They certainly look better than Alabama did. So the more you look at it, it does seem like Georgia, in my opinion, did waste an opportunity. But, they're going to be back, Ryan, and Alabama's going to be back too.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say that this is Alabama's last chance. Maybe it was their last best chance, but I think we kind of feel that about the whole thing in general, just because it's 4 versus 12 in the future. The difference there is, I mean, you had to get to the 4 too, right? So it's not just because there's 12, it's harder now. Like, it was hard to get to the 4, so it levels out in a certain way. But kind of off of what Matt was saying at the beginning of what he had to say, it's hard to see a Bama team that's always so talented and always has a good coaching staff. It seems like Nick Saban wants to hang around a little bit longer, even if things were pointing towards this might be the last season, or he's at least changing a little bit. We're getting closer to it, but I mean, they're just going to have too much talent, and people are not just going to stop going to Alabama all of a sudden. That train's not going to just stop rolling when Nick Saban's gone. I don't think. Will it be the way it was with him in charge? I don't know, but good chance. I mean, I think that this was a good team group of 4. I mean, we felt that Alabama wasn't an amazing team, and that was what was most oppressive about them, being able to get to the playoff, because we felt like this was not their best team. So saying that this was their last chance, I think, would be kind of unfair, because there might be better teams ahead for Alabama in the next few years.
But I don't know. It doesn't look like there will be the types of teams that they've had in the past. I can't remember which of the two of you said it. Um, but in 21 they had, listen, so right now, after a month after Georgia lost to them, everybody is going to listen to what I say right now and say, man, you're just being a hater or something like that. But the fact of the matter is, over the 3 seasons, Georgia's been vastly more dominant than Alabama has. There's no question about that. But their weakness has been Alabama. Now, Alabama wasn't there in Atlanta in 22, and Georgia beat LSU by 20, and then they beat TCU by a million. They had to hold on to beat Ohio State. Alabama was busy losing to LSU. Texas A&M, I can't remember who they lost to in 21 or 22. Excuse me. Who did they lose to last year?
Texas.
No.
Or no. A&M.
Yeah.
A&M.
Like that should never happen. And so they lost Texas A&M. They lost the wrong game to LSU. Not a great LSU team. They're these two of the last 3 times at Auburn, you could argue that they should have lost. They didn't. They get credit for that. But for me, it's not just for me. I mean, all you got to do is watch. And Georgia's just had a better. I don't think it's 45 games. They had a better 44 games. Just that 2 of them, Matt, were losses to Alabama. The only 2 losses were to Alabama. So I think sometimes people will, people will sort of over gravitate to that, particularly Alabama people right now. But in the grand scheme of things, Georgia's been the better program these last 3 years. They're the only one of the 2. Only one of them's won a national championship.
Yeah, they've had a better record than Alabama for the last 3 years now. Yeah. And only 2 programs, I think, have beaten Georgia since 2020. And yes, once the Gators, and the other 3 times were Alabama. So they're the only team that's really figured out how to beat the Dogs. And like I mentioned in another video, they just seem to play their best when Georgia comes to town. I mean, they should have lost to Auburn. And then they come up and play outstanding against the Dogs the next week with everything on the line. But I just don't think they've had the same quarterback. Like, Jalen Milroe is not Tua. He's not Mac Jones. He's not Bryce Young. I do think they need another elite quarterback, and I guess everyone does, right? But Georgia's in a position where they're going to have really good quarterback play for a long time.
Is J.J. McCarthy elite?
I think he's really good. I think he made some big-time throws.
If we're asking, that means no.
Elite? Yeah, top 5, I'd say, is elite, right? I mean, 5 best quarterbacks are elite. I would not put him in that category, Ryan.
Okay. Next, well, we have a long time to discuss this, but I'll throw it to Ryan, our resident quarterback guru or expert or quarterback watcher. I mean, obviously, Michael Penix is the top 5 in this year's college football. Jaden Daniels. Where is Jalen Milroe in the college football for this past year, and where is Carson Beck?
Oh, I would say Beck had a better year than Jalen Milroe. Around the top 10. I mean, there were games where he made an impact. I mean, four touchdowns on the ground in that one, right? There were some games where he was a big part of the reason why they won. So it's hard to sit there and say that he's done a bad job. But I mean, how many people could you name that were better than him this past season? I think that
Bo
you
Nix, Carson
yeah,
Beck, Jaden Daniels, Penix,
exactly.
Caleb Williams. Then we're talking about Milrose specifically.
Yeah, I think around the 10 mark is where you
I
start
mean, I
talking
don't think
about Jalen
Spencer.
Milroe.
I don't think Spencer Rattler is a better. I mean, Spencer Rattler. I just watched the Carolina Georgia game earlier today. He makes a lot of plays. He's just not got the team that Jalen Milroe's got at all.
Yeah, I'd put Quinn
Uh,
Ewers in the category
Quinn
as well.
Ewers, yeah, really good
Better
player.
quarterback, but we'll see. I think Alabama and Georgia will both take a step forward next year. As crazy as that is to say out loud, because Georgia was really good this year. I mean, 13-1. This is one of the best Georgia teams of all time, if you really break it down. And I think we all agree next year could be even better. But I think Alabama will too. I think they're both going to be back in this situation where they're competing or fighting for a national championship next year.
All right, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video.